Hello, good evening. Another day, another logic workout. Once again, an opportunity to polish our skills and hit and revise our key process ideas. That what is it that I need to crack open any DILR set, and the list of skills is on your screen right now. Very easy ideas. You have to read well, obviously. You have to make a lot of small deductions. You have to be organized and systematic, otherwise, you will lose track of the data. There is something known as trial and error. That means sometimes you will not get the final answer or the final value, and you must try out a particular story and see if it works or not. If it fails, great, then you try out the next story. It is also known as building and testing cases because you will get multiple scenarios in the story, right? So that those are our key ideas. This is once again from CAT 23, slot 3. We have almost gone through all of the challenges earlier. So we are reaching the end of the journey. So by now that skill or that revision of skills should definitely be in place that we know what we're talking about. There is no formula, there is no background logic, there is no type of question that I need to follow. I don't need any pre-preparation for any such set except the preparation of building confidence, of building patience, or building mental stamina. Of course, you need practice there because if it is a big set and you give it to a beginner who has never thought sequentially for 15 minutes, you'll find it difficult. So the purpose of training is not to get, oh, how should I tackle this set, that how is given in the story itself. The purpose of training is to essentially develop that longer patience, develop that mental muscle to be able to go through the set for 10 minutes and not lose track of it, right? Otherwise, the lesson always for the last few days has always been that there's a lot of easy stuff, a lot of it is doable. Even stuff that seems tough is based on very basic deductive reasoning ideas. And then the tougher sets have a more of an effort output, right? You have to do the same steps a number of times. But in this particular case, let's dive into the story. Beautiful set, very short set. Uh, so the effort here is going to be in developing the logic because once you develop the logic, the data is very minimal, right? So let's dive into the story. And as we go through the set, I'll keep revisiting my rules and say, okay, this is where I'm doing my reading, this is where I'm doing my deductions, and here I'm being organized, right? So, in a coaching class, some students register online and some others register offline. No student registers both online and offline. Great piece of information. They are mutually exclusive. Hence, the total registration number is the sum of online and offline registrations. Great. Easy piece of information to follow. The following facts and table pertain to these registration numbers for the 5 months January to May of 2023. So January to May, January, February, March, April, May. I have 5 months in the story. The table shows the minimum, maximum, and median registration numbers of these 5 months. Separately for online, offline, and total number of registrations, the following additional facts are known. I will go to additional facts in a second. First of all, I should know what a median means. So let me give you a piece of data just as an example. Say if I have data like 40, 30, 60, 80, and 10. And I ask you what is the median. So first of all, what you will have to do is you have to organize it in ascending or descending order. So I will say, okay, my story is going to be 10, then which is the next biggest, next is 30, then I have 40, then I have 60, and then I have 80. Now, which is the middle term now? 40 is the middle term. So 40 is going to be my median in the story. Try again. Uh, this is all you pretty much need to figure out that for any of the median challenges that we saw this year. In every slot, there was one question related to median, which does not mean that, oh, median type questions and next year you have to prepare for it. In fact, chances are this year or the next cycle is not going to be like that at all, right? So I'm assuming that everybody knows the basic definition of median. I've read the story. Now it's time to make deductions, right? And organize my data. Because if I look at my table, it says minimum, then maximum, and then median. Though whereas when I visualize median, median comes in the middle. So I will just do a basic reorganization. This is online, on refers to online, off refers to offline, and I'm just reorganizing the data so that I can see it clearly. For online, the minimum is 40, the median is 80, and then I'm going to a maximum of 100. For offline, the minimum is 30, the median is 50, and maximum is 80. And the same thing I did for the total number of registrations as well. Why I'm doing that? Because even when I was trying the problem, when I looked at it, this kept confusing me that I expect the median to be in the middle, and my eyes will go to the middle, but there actually there is the maximum data. The other advantage of doing so is I have this new table in front of me. I want to ask you questions about what is the data going to be in between these 40 and 80 and 80 and 100, right? Now, again, hit pause right now and think about what are the possible values for uh, data for this particular slot between 40 and 80. Think for yourself, and the answers that should come out is that it could be anything from 40, anything from between 40 to 80, right? And similarly, the second last box is going to be anything from 80 to 100. Why? Because I know this is the median term, and we have organized it in order of increasing or decreasing order. That means this term that I'm considering has to be can be maximum equal to 80. Because let's say if I have a piece of data which is 5, 5, 5, 5, and 5. If I have this kind of a data, the median is going to be 5, right? So it is possible that the term before it is equal to the median, the term after is also is equal to the median. What if you can keep playing with this data. Basically, you have to figure it out on your own, some one way or another. That I could have a 50 here, the story would be fine. But can I have a 90 here? No, because then my order story is not going to work. So whatever data here in this particular slot has to be between 40 and 80. 40 and 80 can be included in the story. Anything more than 80 should go in this particular box, right? Again, in this box, can I have a 40 here or a 50 here? I cannot have if I'm thinking of an ascending order, obviously my order will be broken. So just keeping that in mind, hoping that you sit with this and figure this out, because then this is a major part of the story. This is where you're getting the information from. So I'm capturing that information on my table that the middle term between the minimum and the medium could be anything from 40 to 80, and between the median to the maximum, I could have anything from 80 to 100. Now, once I've figured out this logic, the next step is obviously going to be very easy. For offline, similarly, it could be anything from 30 to 50. And for offline, the penultimate data could be anything from 50 to 80. Similarly, for total, it could be 110 or 120. And here it could be 120 to 130, right? Both inclusive. Because when you create a story like this, then you don't have, your ascending order will still be maintained, right? So what have I done so far? I've read the story and noticed that I haven't jumped to the next part of the story. I'm already making deductions about the missing pieces of data. So I have data for 3 months. One of them is going to be minimum, one of them is going to be maximum, and one of them is going to be median. I have total of 5 months. That means for the remaining 2 months, it is going to be one of these stories, right? For online, offline, as well as total. So maybe, and this is an advice from reading comprehension as well, that read a sentence, deduce as much as you can before reading the rest of the paragraph, because if you haven't understood the first line, what's the purpose of just going further in the story, right? And again, some of you might not be this organized, some of you might not come up with this in the beginning, but as you try out the set, you will figure out that you kind of need to figure this data out and have it organized and systematically arranged, right? Now let me further go into the story, and again go fearlessly, be fearless. What does it mean? That I have seen, if you, let's say if you even if you have done just 30 DILR sets, you know they get solved, you know the data is always there, you know it's never the case that the data was not available and it is impossible to do. So you have to keep that, and your brain is as good as anybody else's brain. That is also something that you have to assume. So you look at the data and you try and figure out, and you do so in a very mechanical, process oriented way. You're not thinking of difficulty anymore. If you've decided to attempt this, then you're not. Uh, Let me just check before. Yeah, okay. you're not thinking of whether it is going to work out. You're believing that, and you are relentlessly at the data. Because let's say if you'd not organized the previous table and you just work with the rules available on the screen, you might get stuck somewhere, right? And then you'll say, okay, let me look at the data again. What is it that I have missed? Then you will say, okay, I have the minimum, median, maximum data. Maybe the missing data in between is what I have to consider. But let's dive into the story. In every month, both online and offline registrations were multiples of 10. Great. That means no 45, 55, 65, 62, 77 in the story. It's going to be 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, etc. Right? In January, the number of offline registrations was twice that of online registrations. Okay, great. So if online registration is A, the offline registration is going to be 2A, right? That's the rule here. I've captured it. I may not need to look at it ever again, right? In April, the number of online registrations was twice that of offline registrations. So if offline is B, online is going to be 2B. Ignore the capital and small letters, right? The number of online registrations in March was the same as the number of offline registrations in February. Online, call it C, let's say, and C here also. These values are also similar. The number, and again, right now you might think, okay, I have not got anything. How will I figure this out? Maybe the data is too complicated. Another idea that we've been talking about is over anticipating difficulty level, right? Because you're worried about it, you're scared of it, so you're already thinking too much rather than just thinking with the data available in front of you. So that would be a major step. Stay in the moment, just look at whatever data is in front of you and what can you do with that. The number of online registrations was the largest in May. Wow, first interesting piece. Online largest is 100, so in May it's going to be 100. Right? Now I have it's time to play with the data. I'm at 100. What would be the offline number? Can the offline number be 80 if I do 100? And this is what we mean by trial and error, right? I say, can it be 80? If I do 100 plus 80, the total will become 180, but the maximum total possible is 130. Can it be, can the offline be, I'm thinking in the other direction now, let's say small direction. And again, your order might be different, but essentially you will figure this step out one way or another. Can this be 20? But then you look at, okay, offline minimum is 30. And keeping these two rules in mind, you will come to the conclusion that offline has to be 30 and the total is 130. Because the moment you go more than 30 in this table, 30 or 30 to 50 or 50 or 50 to 80 or 80, you will end up breaking the highest of the highest limit for the total, right? The total maximum possible is 130. So after a little bit of looking at it, you figure out that this is 100 and this is 30 and this is going to be 130. Now, I look at the table again and see, okay, what rule do I have? I have A and 2A. That means my total is going to be 3A. I have 2B and B and my total is going to be 3B. Now, this tells me, this and this particular first rule that all the numbers are multiple of 10 tells me that whatever is the total should be a multiple of 3 because uh, if not, let's say if I put 130 here as an experiment and 103A is equal to 130, then A's value is going to be 130 by 3, which is going to be 3 fours are 12, something in fraction, even if it's not in fraction it will come to a number which is not a multiple of 10. So now I have, that means these two values 3a and 3b cannot be 130, cannot be 110. They have to be 120, which is such a rounded multiple of 3, right? Which is my conclusion. This has to be 120, this has to be 120, which very quickly tells me that this has to be 40 and online for January has to be 40 and offline for January has to be 80. Great, easy steps. This has to be online for April has to be 80 and offline for April has to be 40 because the total is 120. Okay, great. Now I look at the story again. I figured this out. I don't know about what's going to happen for February and March. So let me look at my total story again. In my total, I definitely have 110. I definitely have 130. I definitely have 120, right? The remaining could be 110, 120. This other one could be 120 or 130. I do not know. And remember, this is not organized in months. This is just organized in increasing, descending, ascending, descending order, right? Okay, but I do have a 110. I do have, because I have a 100, 130 and 120 here. That means these boxes that I did not know, there's this middle box between the minimum and the median, this 110, 120, I do not know whether it is 110 or 120. 120 to 130, I do not know which is the case, but I do know one of them is definitely going to be 120, because in my table that I have figured out, I have 120 for Jan as well as 120 for April, right? But 110 is definite. 110 is definitely definite. So where could it be? And this is once again where trial and error comes in, because otherwise the beginner would say, oh, now I don't know what to do with it because there is no calculation left, the very limited information in the rules given, but there is more information in the table that you have created. So now this is where I get into experiment. I say, okay, maybe February is 110. Okay, great. This is where the effort part is coming in. So far, everything was quite straightforward, easy to work out. I mean, of course, depending on relative effort. But right now, I have to go a little slowly and carefully, follow the process. The February total is, I'm trying it out. Can it be 110? Again, I still have missing data. Again, I'll have to go into trial territory only. Let me think of offline. 30 is already gone. Can it be 30 again? Because I know I could have one more 30 from this box. From between 30 to 50, I choose 30. Let's say this is 30 for a second, right? That is possible. So can I say this is 30? Yes, could be 30. But if this is 30, this would also be 30. That means online for March is 30, but I read my rule, online minimum is 40. So can I put a 30 here for offline for February, which is the same as online for March? No, I cannot. That means my 30 story is definitely not going to work out, right? And again, at this juncture in the story, no emotion, no feelings, no thinking ahead and back. You just focus on this 110 story. Can it be 110? What numbers can work out? And after an experimentation and looking at my previous table, I figure out that it can't be 30 because the minimum for online was 30. If this is 30, February offline is 30, March online also will be 30, which is not possible because the minimum for online is 40, right? Hit pause, rewind, figure out the story till it makes sense to you. Okay, can it be 40? Okay, let me fix this again. This was 30 to 50, right? Can this be 40? Okay, maybe it can be. Let's see. Let's check the offline data first. Offline, I have 30 and I have two 40s here. Remember, I could have a 40 here, but then I have a 50. So between 30 and 50, I can only have one number between 30 and 50. If I build this story 30, 40, 40, you will have 30, 40, 40. Your offline ka jo data that you have created will not work. So again, this 40 is not going to work for you, right? Can it be 50? Again, this will be easy. If this is 50, this part is going to be 60, right? The addition is going to be fairly easy. But can this be 50? I have a 30, 40, and then a 50. Great, not a problem. That is fine. That means this offline is not creating a problem for me. But for March, my online is 50. And then for February, my online becomes 60. Remember, you can have between 40 and 80, you could have one more value which is between 40 and 80. But here you have a 40 and you have a 80 and you're getting a 50 and 60, two values between 80 and 40. Not possible because remember, this is 40, this is 80, this is going to be one of 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. But you cannot have two such values in your story. So again, this 50 story, this 100 and story so far is not working out for me, right? And you can keep going. Now you know the process that needs to be run to check the number. Can it be 60? Can this be 60? And if this is 60, this is going to be 50. Once again, can I have 50 and 60 as well between 40 and 80? Remember, between 40 and 80, you can have just one more value between 40 and 80. Here are two values between 40 and 80, which is again not allowed. Uh, and again, even offline, can it be 60? I mean, I've already rejected it. I will leave the checking up to you, right? So this is not working for me. And after this experiment, and right now I'm leaving the rest of the experimentation to you. And I know that this will story of 110 will not work here. If this story of 110 will not work for February, then I know March has to be 110, right? Because there is definitely a at least 110 in the story, that much I know. So this is 110 and I will run the same story over and over again. I will need to run the same testing. This is where the time will go. This is where the set becomes, let's say, a cat proper set, which might take 10 minutes, 12 minutes to figure out. Because this will, the numbers are very easy, but you have to run them over and over again very quickly. And again, if you get scared in the process and you think, oh, it's too much, then you're thinking extra. You're not focused on the process, right? So let's dive in. Can March be 40? And I'm starting from one end. This online minimum was 40, right? I could have a 40, 40, 80 story. If this is 40, the offline will have to be 70. I'll check that in a second. And this will have to be 40. But can it be 40 now? Look at your offline story. You have 30, 40, 40. You can have a 30 40 50 or a 30 30 50 or a 30 50 50, but you cannot have two 40s in the story because again you have your markers here. The starting point is 30, the ending point is 50. You can have only one value extra between 30 and 50. So can it be 40? No. So is this experiment working? No, it's not working. I know it is 110 for sure, but I know that this 40 is not going to work. What about 50? If this is 50, this is going to be 60. If this is 50, this is going to be 50. Can it be 30, 40, 50, 60, 80? 30, 40, 50, this could be 60, this could be 80, no rules being broken. What about the offline? Sorry, what about the online for the rest of the months? You have a 40, you have a 50, this which could go here, you have a 80 which could go here, you have a 100 which will go to the end, and so far no rules are being broken. But once again, just to be very, very clear, this value could be 120 or 130, right? Why? Because I have figured out the 110. 110 is in the minimum category. I have a 130. I have two 120s. That means you could take one of the boxes to be 120, this box or this box. But there is still the other box which could have 120 and 130. Because 110 is not possible, this could not be 110 and 120. It has to be 120 or 130, right? Okay, so now I will try both the stories. Let me assume for a second which that the total is 120. That means this is going to be online for February is going to be 70. Again, can it be 70? 40, 50, between 40 and 80, I could have one value, but I have two values, 70 as well as 50. Not allowed. So if this is 50, this can't be 120. Now let me check 130. That means this will have to be 80. Total is going to be 130. Is this again check all the rules? This offline I had already checked. Check the online data. I have 40, then I have 80. Between 40 and 80, I have a 50. This could be 80 again, and the 100 is in the end, which is fine, right? That means this rule is definitely working for me, and 130 is going to work for me. Now, once again, I'm not going to run everything right now because the video size will become too long. But I do invite you for your own mental processes to check out other values. Can this be 60? Can this be 50? Can this be 70? Can this be? And again, it's going to be oral. For example, just a quick run. Can this be 60? If this is 60, this will have to be 60 as well. But is that possible? I have 30, 40, 60, 60, right? I have a 30, 40, which is fine. Then I have a fixed 50. But after that, I cannot have two 60s, right? Because I have only one slot available for any data between 50 and 80. So this will not work. So you keep trying this out. Be organized, systematic, and patient, and have mental stamina. And you figure out that this is my final table. This is going to be the final story. And now this is life is going to be very, very easy. We can go into the question territory very quickly now. What is the total number of registrations in April? By the way, even if you did not want to do this February March ka game that we just did, the trial and error and the trial and error, you have some questions figured out in the first half of the story, right? So what is the total number of registrations in April? 120. This was concluded earlier. No problem there. What was the total number of online registrations in January? Online only in January is going to be 40. Again, this was figured out earlier, so this should not be a challenge, right? Which of the following statements can be true? The number of offline registrations was smallest in May. Offline was smallest in May. One is definitely true. The total number of registrations was the smallest in February. Not true. I know it is going to be 130 or 120. So, the smallest is not in February. So, my answer is going to be only one. As usual, guys, once we figure out the table, then questions take no time. Which pair of months definitely had the same total number of registrations? January and April. January 120, April 120. Yes, they had the same number of registrations. February and May. February is 130, May is 130. Yes, even they have the same number of registration. And I'm done with the story. So where was the effort in the story? The effort was in the February March case. This is X, this is X, right? And this is where I went into the trial and error process, right? I don't have any more rules to figure out, but there is a lot of data in front of me. Let me put some data and see whether conditions are being met or not. I started with, can this be 110? And then you figure out, okay, this is not 110, so 110 will go there. But even for 110, what values will work? Will a 40 work there? No, a 40 in online for March will not work because you can have only limited number of values between 40 and 80, only one possible extra value, right? So, and so on and so forth. In case my explanation, I think I've gone slightly faster. In case that is not making sense, I've given the ideas at least. So you sit down and try it out by yourself and notice that, okay, what is the problem here? And like I look at 40, can I check it over and over again? And you will see the problem is you not wanting to do it. Once you commit to it, I have to do it, then it's a very easy process. You are distracted by something, you're not happy about it, you don't want to try it out, you're like, why am I doing this? All of that is the barrier here. The data was very, very simple. I look at 40, can it be 30, 40, 50? So the first table that I created earlier and make the deductions early that between 40 and 80, I could have 40 to 80 possible values, but only one of them, right? And 80 to 100 I could have one more value. I can't have 80, 90, 90 and then 100 because there's only one slot which is between 80 and 100, right? And I hope uh, you figure it out in no time. I think I would put it in the slightly challenging category, as in because I don't know whether this data will be very quickly visible to you, especially to anybody who's struggling. But because you have already seen 15, 20, 30, 50 videos at least, let's say solutions you have seen of other people. So you know the data is always there. So you look and look again till you find something. You can't say ki, no, this is impossible. I don't know what's going on, right? So you look at it again and then say, okay, am I missing something? And then I figure out, okay, I have the minimum and the median. There is something going to be in between that. What value can that be? I have a median and a maximum. There's something in between that. What value can that be? And use those values to figure it out. But otherwise, even beyond that, remember two questions in the out of five, you could have figured out very, very quickly. The first step of the table was fairly easy. This multiple of three was a big clue, right? If nothing else, this step at least was very, very easy. So that's it for this session. I will see you with the next challenge. I think we are reaching almost the end of this CAT 23 discussions. So I'll find more logic games and try and learn from them. But that's it for this micro mini very fast session. I will see you really soon with the next video.